I'd like to welcome Roland LeBlanc from the Southeast Regional Service Commission. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
The process that we follow, you have 20 minutes for your presentation, which will be followed by 40 minutes of questions from each of the parties. So the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We also have Sebastian Hultberg who will be making a portion of the presentation.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the invitation. I think the slides are up there, are they? Yes, okay.
Yes.
We're very pleased to be here to share our recent and future initiatives to reduce our carbon footprint and promote a circular economy. Cette présentation vient à un bon moment pour nous, car nous sommes prêts à lancer un appel de proposition pour l'utilisation de nos ressources provenant de nos déchets solides, soit le gaz d'enfouissement, la matière organique et la matière recyclable. Et nous sommes contents de pouvoir vous en parler. Mon nom est Roland LeBlanc. Je suis le directeur des déchets solides pour la Commission des services régionaux du Sud-Est. With me today is Sebastian Hultberg, our Manager of Engineering and Plant Operations. Next slide. We'll start by telling you who is Eco360 and what we do. It will be followed by a section where we share our recent carbon footprint reduction initiatives and our service improvements. It will be followed by a discussion looking at our future plans, which we are eager to embark, and then we'll talk about how you can help. Next slide. So who is Eco360? Well, Eco360 is the solid waste division of the Southeast Regional Service Commission. The service area currently includes 15 communities located in the counties of Albert and Westmoreland. We serve over 180,000 residents, and we operate one of 6 sanitary landfills in the province. The other 5 are located in St. John, Fredericton, Bathurst, Edmundston, and St. Stephen. We have partnerships with a number of RSCs throughout the province to receive their recyclables, organics, and or garbage. Partnering RSCs include the Kent Regional Service Commission, RSC 8, which is Kings, the Miramichi Regional Service Commission, and la Commission de Services Régionaux Chaleur. Next slide. As such, we receive the waste and organics from over 30% of New Brunswickers, while we receive the recyclable material from over 40%. We have over 140 staff, and each year, over 110,000 vehicles visit our site to bring their waste, recyclables, and organics. We're very proud of the fact that we've been recycling and composting for over 25 years. Next slide. The next slide shows an aerial view of our site located just outside the Moncton city limits. You can see here the sorting facility, the compost facility, our landfill, our construction demolition site, the public drop-off, our generator, and our leachate treatment system. Next slide. At our sorting facility, we receive up to 100 tons a day of blue bags and mixed recyclables. We sort the material into various streams such as cardboard and plastic, and then we ship these materials to recycling markets, 99% of which we are happy to report are in North America. Next slide. Here you can see one of our sorting cabins and a photo of our new baler. Next slide. To increase diversion, we continue to invest in smart upgrades to help increase diversion. A good example of this is the recycling of bulky plastics. Thanks to our new baler, we can now recover and bale bulky plastics such as large plastic toys, laundry baskets, and small swimming pools. It is also important to note that we also sort plastic film, such as plastic bags, for which we have an established North American market. Next slide. 2021 was an excellent year in terms of production and diversion. When comparing to 2020, and it's pretty much the same in 2019, our recovery of recycled material is up by 27%, and the overall site diversion is up by 13%. Our revenues for 2021 are just about $2.1 million, which is a record by far. That's more than twice as much as the 2020 amount of just under $1 million. This is both due to strong production as well as very strong market prices resulting from a lack of raw material. Next slide. This slide shows a picture of a recycling stream tip floor on the left, our baler in the center, and some stored bales on the right. Next slide. Now let's talk about our composting program. At our facility, we take the organic waste in the green bags, like food scraps and yard waste, and we turn it into beautiful compost, which is full of nutrition. Next slide. Our primary composting is completed indoors. First, organic stream is dumped on our tip floor. It is then processed and sent to our composting silos, where water and oxygen is added to the mixture, and the product is tilled daily. It is then sent to our secondary composting yard and screened again prior to sending it to the market. And the picture here that you see on the slide is showing a pile of finished compost, which is the real good stuff. Next slide, please. So why composting? Well, we actually divert significant amounts of organic waste from landfill every year. And the compost we produce is an excellent soil amendment. It provides great nutrients for both plants and soil. The process also reduces the greenhouse gas emissions significantly. We produce a category A type compost, which means it can be sold to market. Next slide. But the proof is in the pudding. We started a compost trial project last year where we used various mixes of soil and compost. As you can see, the box to the left had no compost, just soil. As you go right, the percent of compost increases. The photos speak for themselves. The benefits of compost soil amendments are incredible. Next slide. And to provide further proof of the benefits of composting, we used our compost for the landscaping around our new building, and our lawn is growing thick and green without the use of any fertilizers. And it's very much loved by everyone, including our friends shown here, which were just outside my office last year. Next slide. The final major component of our site is the sanitary landfill. The picture you see here on the slide is a picture of our lining system. So first of all, I guess waste is deposited at the landfill face. The waste then decomposes and produces a liquid called leachate and a gas, mainly formed of methane. To capture the leachate, a membrane and piping is installed on the bottom of the landfill cell, which is what you see here. This liquid is then sent to our treatment pond for treatment by aeration, and it is then sent to the Transaqua wastewater facility in Riverview for further treatment. The gas is collected via wells installed in the waste, is sent to the generator, which will be discussed later on in the presentation. Next slide, please. At this point, Sebastian will talk about our recent carbon footprint reduction initiatives and service improvements, most of which have been implemented in the last 5 years.
Merci, Roland. Now I'll go through some of our carbon footprint reduction initiatives and service improvements. Next slide, please. Like Roland mentioned, our landfill produces a lot of landfill gas from its decomposing waste. This gas consists mainly of methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. And to reduce our environmental impact, we used to collect and flare off this gas. But since 2017, we maximize its value by using it as a fuel in a 1 megawatt generator, as is seen on the slides here. The electricity we produce is sold to NB Power. Next slide. The power plant costs about 3.7 million to construct and has worked very well for us with an uptime of over 95%. Since startup, we've generated over 3.5 million, while we spent 1.3 million to operate the facility. And more importantly, we've also reduced the carbon footprint by over 190,000 tons. That's the equivalent emission of burning 440,000 barrels of oil, so quite significant. And to put things in perspective, the electricity you produce is enough to power about 500 average households in New Brunswick every year. Next slide. We also have a large biomass boiler on site, which we've had in operation since 1995. It is fueled by wood waste like pallets, which we shred ourselves on site. The boiler is used to heat our recycling and compost facilities, which are over 90,000 square feet, so it's a large facility. It's also a significant factor in reducing our carbon footprint on site. The biomass boiler, together with our landfill gas generator, actually makes us a net energy provider, something we're very proud of. Next slide. The Mobile Eco Depot is one of our most successful and well-received projects ever. It is essentially a traveling waste depot that we've had in operations for a few years now. Next slide. So it visits each region of our service area about once per month. It is free, and residents can pretty much bring in anything they cannot put out at their regular curbside collection. Things like furniture, appliances, and hazardous waste. The goals of the Mobile Eco Depot are to increase accessibility to residents, reduce illegal dumping in the region, and reduce our carbon footprint. A good example of how we reduce carbon footprint is our event at Port Elgin. Here we typically have about 200 visitors. It would take each visitor about 2-hour round trip to our solid waste facility in Berry Mills. So instead of spending all this time and mileage, we just have a few trucks and employees going back and forth. Next slide, please. The participation has exceeded our expectation, and we hear from residents that it's a very well appreciated service. Some of the highlights since 2017 is that we've had over 60,000 visitors and we've collected over 3,000 tons of material. Next slide. We're very excited to talk to you about our glass recycling program, which we launched on a large scale last year. From public consultations and other public events, we often heard from residents that they really want to recycle glass. It is one of those material types that's commonly associated with recycling, and we're therefore very excited and proud to now offer this service. Next slide. So how does this work? Residents can drop off their sorted, clean, clear, and colored glass to any of our 10 depots throughout the region. We've collected over 75 tons of glass since expanded our service. That's over 300,000 bottles. It's a lot of bottles. And we expect this program to just continue on growing as we move forward. Next slide. Our new public drop-off opened in 2020 with the main goal of making a visit to our solid waste facility a better experience for everyone. Safer, less waiting, and a lot less driving across our site. It allowed us to create a central drop-off location essentially. Next slide. Here's an aerial overview showing the entire public drop-off. Next slide. We've also been busy making smart upgrades to our facilities the last 5 years. We've installed a new metering bin in our sorting facility to allow a more consistent throughput in processing. It also allowed us to eliminate the large wheel loader from our operations, which was a great added bonus. We've completed a large-scale lighting retrofit where we replaced all the old high bay lighting with the new LED fixtures. This allowed us to reduce our energy costs by over 10,000 a year. It's a great project. Next slide. Here you can see to the left the metering bin being loaded with recyclables for processing, and to the right you see the bright LED fixtures lighting up our warehouse. Next slide. We also replaced our baler in 2020. The new baler was chosen for its energy efficient design and its ability to produce very dense bales. Therefore, we've significantly reduced our storage requirements, and it's also allowed us to load more material per each shipment of material we send out, which really contributed towards our lowering of carbon footprint. Next slide. We recently upgraded our leachate treatment system, which drastically improved both treatment and its energy consumption. We've also created our own straw field on site, which we use to grow and harvest straw, which is a valuable ingredient in our composting recipe. The straw field we like to think of as a good example of circular economy on site, where we use our own compost as a soil amendment to grow a crop that's then beneficial for our own composting operations. Next slide. Our new administration building, which we built in 2020, is very energy efficient and was built with features to minimize the environmental impact. And some of our future initiatives include electrification of our fleet and heat recovery of our landfill gas generator. Next slide. Here's a summary of our main carbon reduction initiatives on site. As you see, our landfill gas generator is the main factor as it reduces our annual carbon emissions by over 44,000 tons a year. Combined, our way of managing solid waste reduces our environmental footprint by over 75,000 tons every year. But we don't settle there. We believe we can do more. Next slide. We're currently working on a request for proposal for renewable natural gas projects and other carbon reduction initiatives. While working on how to best utilize our future excess landfill gas, we've actually been contacted on several occasions by various companies interested in utilizing some of our resources. So we thought, why not put it all out to the market to see what innovative solutions there may be to best utilize these resources. The request for proposal will have a very flexible approach where proponents can choose one or several of the resources we have available. These resources are the landfill gas, which may be used directly or converted into renewable natural gas. The recyclable stream may be used for projects such as pyrolysis. The organic stream, which could include biosolids from TransAqua, could be used for anaerobic digestion. And conveniently, we also have a very large landfill slope facing south, which could be an ideal location for a large solar project. Next slide. So we're looking for projects that can provide the best overall value to the Regional Service Commission, including benefits to both the environment and society, revenues and quantity of carbon credits. And we're looking for solutions with low risk from experienced companies. Next slide. We believe the resulting projects could significantly reduce our carbon footprint by up to 200,000 tons of CO2 per year. So large scale. We believe these projects can provide New Brunswickers with renewable energy sources, create high quality jobs, and yield significant revenues, and really put New Brunswick on the map. I'll hand it over to Roland. Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian. So with the new technologies available, there are some very interesting opportunities for every region of the province, if we think about it. Imagine if we had a number of RSCs working together to implement these new strategies throughout the province to reduce our carbon footprint. It could result in the construction of maybe 4 to 6 anaerobic digesters in strategic locations around the province. Next slide. It would also be nice to have the material we sort at our facilities actually be recycled in our province. For instance, a plastic recycling facility could be constructed in the Solar region because they may have some energy available from their landfill gas. We could send them our plastic and they can send their recyclables for sorting on the way back. In addition, although there are landfill gas generators in 5 of the 6 RSCs, including St. John, Fredericton, Edmundston, and Bathurst themselves, there may be opportunities to expand these systems to produce renewable natural gas. And of course, there is the possibility of using this renewable natural gas for mass transit initiatives, which would be very exciting for New Brunswick. One of the unknowns for us is how the Extended Producer Responsibility Program for packaging and printed paper will affect our recycling program. Under this program, industry will be responsible for the collection, sorting, and recycling of residential packaging and printed paper, which is a significant portion of what we receive at our sorting facility. Industry could decide to not use our services, which would mean that we would lose a considerable amount of our recyclables. So until we know what industry will do, it will be difficult to sign any long-term agreements. Next slide. Because these are newly emerging technologies, there are a lot of questions about what the rate technology is and how it should be implemented. There may also be some need to make some legislative and regulatory changes. We'll need your assistance to help us make the right decisions and to get over some of the hurdles that may pop up along the way. As you can imagine, these projects will be time sensitive and everyone needs to be part of the solutions. There are also a lot of questions related to environmental attributes or carbon credits. We'll need your help to get some insight in the best way to manipulate through these complex mechanisms. What is the best way to go? Where do we fit in? How will our municipal partners be affected? These are some of the questions we're going to have as we move forward, and we'll need your help to answer. We hope that we can count on your support to help us turn our facility and the other similar facilities across the province into a key piece of New Brunswick's green energy future. Next slide. Huge thank you for your attention, and we look forward to your questions and comments. How's that for timing?
Parfait. Merci beaucoup pour votre présentation. On va passer maintenant à la période de questions. Et on commence avec Monsieur LeBlanc.
Merci. Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to welcome Mr. LeBlanc, Roland, and Mr. Sebastian Hultberg. Thank you very much for being here this afternoon, attending. I think you realize that I am a big proponent of the Regional Service Commission. Even Eco 360. I've had a great opportunity to witness some of your great projects, so it's an honor and a pleasure to host you. Well, I'm going to get right down to the questions, and my first question is maybe to Roland. You talked about in your slide number 38 about the possible legislative and regulatory changes. So what exactly would be helpful for our committee to help in the legislative changes to enable your enterprise to flourish and to help with climate change?
Good question, and it's one of those things that we've been discussing for quite a while, and we don't know all of the answers or all of the questions that we'll have until we start going through some of the proposals. And we are working with some specialists who are working with us. Chris Stewart from Stewart McKelvey and Bill Thompson, a former Deputy Minister of Energy, are helping us out. And they're having the same questions with respect to how is landfill gas viewed potentially as a natural gas, and does it fit anywhere with the existing regulatory requirements? So that's one of our main questions going forward. And we know that all of these projects are going to be new emerging technologies and could possibly face some hurdles. And that too, we're going to need some help from everyone to make these projects go forward. And but yeah, it's quite difficult to know exactly where the problems are going to arise. We know there's going to be some, because there's none of these projects like anaerobic digestion and even the use of natural landfill gas as a renewable natural gas is really new.
So thank you. So one topic that I wanted to discuss, we've recently adopted a municipal reform in December. How is that going to impact you positively or challenge the Regional Service Commission? How do you feel there'll be some maybe some new opportunities for Eco 360?
Good question. I think one of the great things that came out of the Regional Service Commission model is the fact that the municipalities were working together. So there's a lot more collaboration. I think by having maybe 13 members around the table instead of 19, although we had some great discussions at the table and a very constructive board, it might facilitate things. One of the issues that we've always talked about is collection. And, you know, at the moment, there's 15 municipalities doing collection, and there's a whole number of LSDs also doing collection. So I think it will definitely benefit the collection cost, because we'll be able to get some economies of scale on some of those contracts.
Okay. So, Roland and Sebastian, I know that right now you're mandated with municipal waste. You don't focus on multiple dwellings, which are apartments or commercial buildings or institutional endeavors, and those have a high impact of volume. So is there a way that us as legislators or committee members in helping climate change mitigation, as far as, greenhouse gases, what you guys do, how do you see that opportunity? Is there a way that we could improve, or how could we work together to mitigate that for you guys?
I think the new extended producer responsibility program for packaging and printed paper. So that's sort of, if you were sort of slowed us down on our major changes, because we've been working hard, as you know, to bring apartments on board. It's probably been 5 years that it's been on the table that we'd like to get apartments in part of the program. But because of this new program, we knew that apartments could be a part of this program, and it appears that it is in the legislation that apartments will be industry's responsibility to collect, sort, and recycle. Now, we're hoping that they will negotiate with us, but that will definitely help. And that's one of the reasons why we held off. We didn't want to make any wholesale changes, only to find out that industry is going to do it in a different way, and there'd be a lot of people frustrated. So now I guess what we sort of would like is to make sure that industry works with the regional service commissions in the development and the implementation of this new plan. So this new EPR PPP can go very well if we all work together, but it can be problematic if industry just decides to go on its own. Because as we know, there's a lot of commissions doing a lot of good work for recycling. For our part, we've been doing it for 25 years. And they should build on what we do and not just go about by their own and do it their own way. Also on the ICI side, we've visited a number of businesses, and there's a number of businesses that do great work as far as recycling. The problem is we don't see any of those numbers because they're done by private recyclers or they handle it on their own. But if we could get part of those numbers, we were visiting firms and a lot of it was being done, cardboard, metal, plastic was already being recycled in a great way.
Okay. I would like maybe Sebastian, since I know you were an instrumental piece of the gas and the generator and all, maybe for the members to, maybe you could explain to us exactly, I know you did it briefly, but maybe go into a little bit more details, but also explain the possibilities. Like you said, there's 500 homes right now that are being electrified by this gas generated facility. What's the possibilities if there's any capacity to increase, to invest more, and to get better return on investment, and maybe power up more homes for future, but also maybe as you guys are a pilot project, maybe other facilities also doing this so that all New Brunswickers we can have benefit from the waste sites?
Absolutely. Great question, Mr. LeBlanc. Yeah, so we currently run our existing landfill gas generator from a portion of our existing landfill. And as we expand our landfill, more and more gas will become available. That is the request for proposal that we're working on currently. That's intended to deal with a lot of this gas. So additional electricity generation could be one solution. There's definitely the gas available for it, or it may be utilized in a different way to convert it into renewable natural gas. That's sort of where we stand on the future available landfill gas. And yes, it is being done elsewhere in the province. It is great to see that the province and the regional service commissions are working together and actually sharing experiences in how to operate these facilities to make sure that they produce as much power as possible.
Okay, thank you. So the last one probably question I'll get is, Roland, you're a good salesman as far as your compost, and I like your slide presentation. Especially with the deers. It's too bad there was no male bucks there. But anyway, for intense purposes, how have you been so successful with your compost, and what are the possibilities for the future? And how can we as consumers, are those products being sold to market? Like I'm not aware of that. We can buy them in town at the local store. So maybe you can enlighten us on your famous compost project.
Well, good question. And yes, it is great compost. We're very happy with it. I can tell you that Sebastian's been working very hard on optimizing the composting process. So we're getting a much better compost now than we were, let's say, 10 years ago. And we're very proud of that. It's something that right now we're selling to market, but we're looking into discussing with our municipal partners. Do we give them to municipal partners so they can distribute to some of their residents and so on. And we've got a couple of little projects that we're working with right now that are sort of examples of what it can be used for and in various communities. But I think that's the next step.
Thank you. That's all my questions. I would have more questions, Mr. Chair, but I want to thank both of them for a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Kuhn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to both of you. Thank you for your presentation. It's nice to see the concepts of circular economy being properly, manifested on the ground so that and presented. I particularly like your straw production idea. Whoops, if you're ever looking for someone.
I think my grandfather would like that too.
Yeah, no, mine would too. I think we could work on it together. So yeah, I'm really captured by you sort of putting the concepts of circular economy into action. Clearly your team is creative, and I want to say, because I remember Armin Bannister and the group he worked with way back when to get the whole system, landfill and so on in Moncton up and running, and recycling, that certainly you've done the vision that he and his group brought to this in the Moncton area proud. I have some questions around the renewable natural gas projects. I'm quite taken with that. And I know in Quebec and in BC, there's quite a lot of work going on that way with Montreal. It's got I don't know if it's finished yet, but it was certainly in 2019. It was intending to build a biomethane generator to clean up gas from their landfill and wastes and put it into the gas pipelines. In fact, I think BC too, and so what do you see the potential here in New Brunswick for renewable natural gas?
Sebastian, did you want to?
Sure. Yeah, from doing our research into how to best utilize our landfill gas, we of course have the landfill gas generator, but we also came across the facilities I think you mentioned or referred to here. We've talked to some of the facilities out in BC and how they also sell landfill gas as a sort of medium BTU fuel to some customers. They also have a project under development where they are looking at completely purify it and remove all the non-methane from the gas so that it can be injected into the renewable or to the new natural gas grid. And this is also being done in a few occasions in Quebec. And I think that's some of the main technologies that we're hoping to get here in response to our RFP.
And I think in addition, I mean, there's anaerobic digestion with our organics. It would be a new process which would create some more gas. And I think we're in exciting times because a lot of these technologies, although they've been used for 15 to 25 years in Europe, are now showing some progress in North America. And for us, we want to make sure that if we invest in a technology, that it's a solid technology that's been used before. And hopefully we get a good proponent who's willing to take some risk and give us some revenues and have a win-win-win for the environment and the commission and the proponent.
And you mentioned that, I think, in the same breath, the potential utilization of this renewable natural gas to run transit systems. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to do. I mean, that's being used in some areas in the U.S. I don't think there's any spots in Canada yet, but definitely, I mean, we're here in the Berry Mills Road, we're quite close to the Trans-Canada. So it would be a good opportunity to put a filling station here with natural gas, possibly talking to our municipal partners on the maybe Kodiak Transit and some of the other large industrial users. So certainly something that, again, with this RFP that we're coming out, that would be certainly a value-added service that a proponent could provide.
And adding to that, oh, excuse me, Mr. Koo.
Go ahead.
Adding to that, in terms of circular economy, it is being done elsewhere where you have garbage collection trucks actually being fueled by biogas. So that's also a possibility.
I love that. And as long as the drivers are eating the vegetables from your gardens there, produced from the compost, great, you've got a total circle. And that's cool. Anyway, okay, so that's, it'd be fascinating to see what kind of results you get from your RFP process. Now, it sounds like in your what's next category here, you've had conversations with other RSCs about anaerobic digestion, and so there is interest from the other regions in this? Is that what you're telling us?
Well, at the moment, no, we're just throwing that out as a possibility.
Okay. Okay.
But there is a lot of close collaboration amongst the RSCs. We talk regularly, and I guess what we'd like to see is a lot more discussion on sharing of services and partnerships and that type of stuff so that we can work together. So we actually have a technical advisor that works for 4 of the regional service commissions that shares the knowledge between the commissions, so that what used to happen, we'd have one project such as a flare that you do every 20 years, and we'd hire a consultant. The other RSC would hire another consultant, and they do the same mistakes. Well, this technical advisor goes on every project and sort of raises the bar on all of the work we do.
Well, that's good to know. So I also will say that I'm glad in the context of circular economy, you're thinking about the idea of trying to utilize more of that, what's recycled for manufacturing in the province. And it's always irked me that that in the past so much was being exported, and in the past so much is being exported at great distances. So by reducing those that transportation, obviously that's another way of cutting the carbon footprint. If we can produce businesses in New Brunswick to utilize that as a feedstock, that's great. And you were talking about a potential plastic facility in the Chaleur, I think.
Yeah, I'm sorry. On that, I think that too is a discussion that we were always having as far as, let's spread it around in the region. We could have facilities throughout the province, and working together to make sure that everybody gets some jobs and some good environmental carbon footprint reduction.
No, I appreciate that, and I like the way you're generating ideas. It's important, and good to clarify, but generating ideas is good. With respect to possible legislative and regulatory changes, have you actually looked at the Electricity Act to determine whether there are specific changes you would like to see or might need to see?
Our specialists have been going through that, and it is a bit of a fuzzy area at the moment for our landfill gas, whether it falls under the current legislation for the gas regulations. Because it's renewable natural gas, it may fall in a bit of a gap, and we're not really sure what will happen with it. So I guess those types of questions are being asked at the moment, and probably something we'll need some help on.
Yeah, it's good that you're thinking about it and looking at it, and it sounds like a topic for RSCs around the province to get together on. Certainly to provide some guidance to us, government, in terms of what sorts of changes might be helpful.
Right.
So that would be good to hear more about in the future. So the other thing I would say is that I too share your concern over what the impacts of the planned extended producer responsibility for paper and packaging might have on Regional Service Commission's operations for waste management and including yours. As you articulated, it's still unknown, and it could go in various directions. I hope that there will be good discussions between environment, yourselves, and the industry to come up with a solution that works and doesn't undermine the good progress that you have made there and others have made in the other regional waste operations. So thank you for your time and your presentations, and especially for your creativity and willingness and courage to generate ideas. Lord knows we need lots of good ideas. Some will land and some won't, but no one should be afraid of putting forward ideas. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kuhn. Mr. Austin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. LeBlanc and Mr. Hultberg. I appreciate your presentation there today. And when you were giving your presentation, I remember several years ago doing a tour. It was kind of a ribbon cutting, I guess, at the Fredericton Solid Waste Commission when they unveiled their project with the gas coming out of the landfill, and how that it was so interesting back then. I remember to see it, and you know, the concept of, you know, because I remember growing up as a child in my area, there was a dump, and we would just go with pickup trucks, throw the garbage into this large dump, and that was it. You walk away and out of sight, out of mind. And you see the state-of-the-art facility in Fredericton, and I'm sure no different than yours and others around the province, where, you know, you're not only are you properly disposing of garbage, but you're actually using some of that to produce gas, to create electricity and other things. I'm just wondering, and I know you touched on it in your presentation, but looking back at some of these facilities, can you kind of highlight some of the benefits of it and the successes that has been seen from these types of projects?
As far as the landfill gas,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we've been operating for 5 years now. I think Fredericton was operating a few years before that. I mean, bottom line is that we're producing electricity with landfill gas, and that electricity may have been produced by other production facilities throughout the province. So, you know, we always seen it as a win-win-win. It's a win for the RC because we'll effectively be able to pay for it all in about 7 or 8 years. And then it'll continue producing some revenues for the Regional Service Commission, which means lower taxes. But on the carbon footprint side, it's huge. I mean, it is, methane is what, 25 to 30 times more potent than CO2. And some are saying even more than that. That means every ton that we reduce is like 25 tons of landfill of CO2 produced by others. So huge potential impact.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think it's extremely innovative, and it's good to see that, you know, areas around the province are moving in that direction and expanding on it. I want to switch focuses, I guess, to the mobile eco depot that you discussed, and I see on your website here. How has that been going in terms of, I guess, in terms of demand? Are people showing up at these sites? Are you receiving a lot of waste and material from these mobile eco depots, and how have they been going?
It's one of our most popular events that we have. It sort of stems from we did some public consultations a few years back, and you know, when we'd go to Alma, which is about an hour and a half away, you know, they would tell us that, look, it's great that you have a facility and that you're open Saturday from 8 till noon, but it's not really practical for us to bring our mattress all the way there, drive an hour and a half, drop it off, and then come back. So for them, you know, we used to be around with our hazardous waste depots twice a year. Now we're in every region every month. So we'll go to the Hillsborough, Riverside, Albert, Alma area once a month to one of those 3 locations. We'll go to Chediac, Capelé, Beaubassin Est once a month. And they can bring their hazardous waste. So it's curbed illegal dumping, as you can imagine, considerably. It's providing an additional service to residents. We wish we could do more, because the one complaint we get now is from people that say, well, I don't have a car, so I can't even bring it to your mobile eco depot. But I think the numbers are 66,000 that have used our facility over the last, since 2017. We've got tons and tons of household hazardous waste. We're even launching a sort of a reuse, so people could bring furniture for reuse that we could give to charitable organizations. So yeah, it's been, we get a lot of smiles, a lot of positive comments from it. It's one of our very popular things that we like to talk about.
Yes, for sure. I can imagine, because it certainly makes sense that if they can't come to you, you go to them. And I think that's a good business plan. And I think it's good public service that's offered by your organization. So well done on that. The last question I have is in relation to some of the changes that we're seeing with legislation in relation to municipal reform. And I think it was asked earlier, but I'm just wondering if you're anticipating any significant changes, I guess, in relation to municipal reform and what you folks are doing there in your facility.
I can't think of anything. It's like I mentioned a while ago. I think, it'll maybe a bit easier making some changes. There'll be a few less people at the table, but we've been having some great discussions at the table, very constructive discussions. We've got the support of the board, which helps us to make some of these new projects happen. On the solid waste side, I think it may help on the collection in order to make bigger contracts. I think that's the biggest benefit to us at this point.
And I guess just one final question that I was curious about. What's roughly your annual budget at your facility there?
I think it's 15 or 16 million. I don't have it offhand. Somewhere in that vicinity.
Well, again, thank you both for your presentations and the work that you're doing in the facility down there. And I think, if I understand correctly, that it tends to mirror one another in other facilities around the province in waste collection and being innovative in waste collection. So kudos to you, and thanks again for the presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Minister Johnson.
Thank you so much for this presentation, gentlemen. It's been so informative, and I was really looking forward to it. When I saw the deck and went through it, it was exciting to see what's going on in the province. I don't want to take a lot of time, and in the interest of that, I'm going to give you all 3 of my questions at once, because one may relate to another, and then you can jump in and answer them at your leisure, okay? So there's a company, a startup in the province, PlayX, that's taking ag waste and converting it into like a giant Lego brick. Is there any uptake with you with regard to ag waste, and is that a partnership that you can create to, or is it something that companies like PlayX, private industry, are taking on themselves? So that's the first one.
Okay.
The second one is, love the mobile eco depot concept. Love it. Is there an appetite to expand that to the other 5 regions? That's the second one. And the third one is, when you're talking about your straw field, do you use the whole grain for compost, or are you harvesting the grain and then using the stem and leaf for the compost end of things? That's it.
Great questions. Sebastian, did you want to talk about the straw field?
Sure, I can jump in on that. So we don't use like a combine in order to actually take the grain out. We simply use the entire straw. We've typically been using rye in the past. It's been working very well for us, and we may, if we expand the straw field, look at also actually harvesting the grain, but at this point, no, we haven't.
Okay.
For your first question, we're always open to any partnerships, any new technologies, If people want to come to our site and take a look at our waste streams, we'd be more than happy to do pilot projects with them. I think this RFP that we're coming out as we speak, very shortly, we're looking at asking people to propose projects on all of our resources. So all of our recycling streams, all of our organics, all of our landfill gas, whatever that the new technologies are there that are proven technologies, or even that they want to take the risk, we're certainly open to discussion, and we'd love to have them come in and talk to us about their product.
Do you currently have any uptake on ag waste, like the stuff that's coming out of the tubulator bags? Do they bring it into you, or is that something that hasn't really shown up on your radar yet?
No,
I haven't. Go ahead,
no,
Sebastian.
we haven't heard about that at this point.
Okay.
We have been discussing ag waste in terms of potential for pyrolysis, but not in this other example that you mentioned.
Thank you.
And the Mobile Eco Depot, we've had some other RSCs that would like us to provide the service on a sort of biannual basis. Our problem right now is that it is so timed to the extent that we're just filled with the 52 weeks. We're just squeaking by with all of the regions. We had to rejig it a bit. But I mean, it's definitely something that could be paralleled in other commissions. We would certainly be willing to help them out. We can provide them our costs, our programming, how we came up with it. Yeah, certainly willing to help them out and work with them.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Our pleasure.
And the Minister Crosman.
Yes, anybody else too that on our committee would like to speak up on our government side is certainly welcome to do so. Welcome, Roland. Sebastian, good to see you again. It's been a while.
Good afternoon.
I've been your biggest proponent, I guess, for bragging up your site and your business since our tour just over a year ago. I'm looking forward to going back soon. I guess we wore a mask then. We'll probably wear a mask now. But my son-in-law's in Moncton too. He enjoys your public drop-off. He goes there just for a Sunday drive, I think. But it's an excellent site, certainly leading by example. We can all learn from things that are going on your way, and including the uptake for your depots, for your glass recycling. And I like the idea of your collection of furniture too to be reused. But during our tour as well, I spoke about your compost area. You drive in, well, drive through actually, right? And you expect an odor, no odor, and your product is clean. It's being resold, it's being used, and it's great to see. We also had discussions at the time about tire recycling. Did anything else happen since then regarding?
Yeah, no, I think we've been getting good service on the the tire pickups. That's been working very well. I think you had something to do with that, likely, but maybe not. It's maybe going to happen anyway.
We're all working together. We toured the site as well in the track, and it's great the way they reuse the rubber that's going through there. So that's good to see. But a couple of questions here. What do you think the opportunities are? What do you think the opportunities are to increase the capture of gas to make things more efficient?
Great question. Sebastian, did you want to attack that?
Well, I think on that, we recently expanded our gas-filled collection. We had a big RFP. We partnered with some of the other RSCs in the province to get good pricing, and by doing that, we could attract the best quality consultants in North America. And I think that's one way where we stay efficient in our gas capture. Anaerobic digestion of organics would be another way to increase gas generation and capture.
Now, maybe with the gas capture, maybe you can briefly explain to our committee today on how that's reused for the city of Moncton.
So currently, the way we capture gas is we drill large wells into our landfill, and the landfill is then capped so that there's no gas escaping where we don't want it to escape. And the way it benefits the city of Moncton and our other stakeholders right now is through the combustion in our landfill gas generator. But if it were to be converted into renewable natural gas, it could be injected into the natural gas grid and then used by any users in our region.
And I think it definitely benefits the city of Moncton and all of our users just by the production of electricity and the revenues that we get from it, which we can lower our tip fees to the municipalities.
Well, certainly a great partnership. I know that's why I want to mention that again. And going back to the original question here about the opportunities, have you explored the cost benefit of this, capturing gas and the revenue, like, moving forward? I guess the question is, how can we expand on that, as maybe some questions were asked before by the members today?
Well, I think there's some huge potential for revenues on the gas and the carbon credits. And that's really where we're at today and why we're sort of going to an RFP, because we're not sure exactly what the fair market value of that gas
Right.
and the benefits as far as carbon credits, because it's changing quite a bit, quite often. And depending on what's happening across North America, it makes it either more valuable or less valuable.
Sure. So you're still looking into it.
Yes, definitely, and huge potential for revenues for our communities.
Yes, that's why I want to bring that up today. You also mentioned the possibility of looking into regional sites. What do you see as the next steps to having the regions work together?
Yeah, that was, and I guess we always talk about partnerships and how we can work together and get economies of scale and getting every region benefiting from. I think we need to, with this EPR PPP, it's a good occasion for industry and ourselves and the province to get together and then really talk about all of this. If we could have some type of a committee structure or a steering committee, sort of looking at all of these questions and working together and saying, okay, what's the best thing for the entire province?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I believe you mentioned just a few minutes ago that the same thing, working together. What you're doing already is in place regarding the EPR PPP program, and to work ahead again with best practices. And just on a closing note, in case someone else has another question from the government side here, it's Roland and Sebastian, I want to say hats off to you today, to you and your entire team, because you are leading by example. I encourage any member of the committee or general public to, actually can't take an open tour now during COVID, but certainly be aware of what's going on. And education being so important that in all these things. So maybe just in closing, you covered a lot today. What bullets do you see we can get across the finish line on a new renewed climate change plan? Are there 2 or 3 bullets that come to mind that we could get through sooner than later?
Yeah, good question. And really for us, I think the big thing is on the EPR PPP for us is really get a good steering committee together so that we're all working on the same page in a positive manner. And that's a big file coming up. It's one that can make everybody look really good, or if everybody's working not together, it can go very, very bad. So I think if we can get a steering committee, that would be the big number one wish. And that way, I think we can, because we need to be part of the development and the implementation of the plan.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon. It was very, very interesting. I'll give you this opportunity to make any closing comments that you might like.
I would just like to thank everyone for their time and the great comments and great questions. It was very interesting for us. We're very happy to share all of this information with you, and we'd like to, like Minister Crosman say, invite you to a tour when things get a bit safer. And we'd love to have you to come around and show you what we're doing. And listen, if your RSCs are interested in talking, we'd be very interested. And we continuously talk to them anyway, so we'll be sharing information back and forth. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so we're all teed up for our next presentation. Let's see, we have Tim Murphy with us, and he's the Executive Director for the New Brunswick Environmental Network. So welcome, Mr. Murphy. The process is you'll have 20 minutes to give your presentation, followed by 40 minutes of questions. And we'll just go around, each party will ask questions. So Mr. Murphy, you have the floor.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation to speak here today. Merci pour l'invitation de vous adresser la parole aujourd'hui. Je vais présenter en anglais, mais je salue nos groupes membres francophones et je vous invite à me poser des questions en français à la fin lors de la période de questions. So let me begin by recognizing that I speak to you today from the unceded and traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And as a provincial organization, the NBN also conducts its work on the unceded and traditional territories of the Wolastoqey and Passamaquoddy people. Next slide. Just a little bit about the NBN. The NBN, New Brunswick Environmental Network, was established in 1991. It's a communication network that links together over 110 nonprofit environmental organizations, big and small, French and English, and in all corners of our beautiful province. The year 2021 marked our 30th anniversary. The role of the NBN is to improve communication and cooperation amongst environmental groups and between these groups, government and other sectors that can include academia, business, industry, and large institutions like health and education. The NBN is not an advocacy group and does not itself take position